Are we ready to make some people mad? Hello, my name is Joseph Carroll. I write under the pen name J.R. Carroll. And today we're going to talk about the Wheel of Time. Now, before we get into it, I just want to say, by the title of this video, I have never read The Wheel of Time. But I am willing to agree with tons and tons of other booktubers that it is one of the greatest fantasy books ever written. I believe it. 100% believe it. But I just want to go over the reasons why I will never read it. Probably. Or at least it's not towards the top of my list. And I'm going to start off by saying, if you've seen any of my videos, you already know I'm not some big scholar who does really big deep dives, into many books. I'm more of a let's just go and enjoy these books type person. I definitely give benefits of the doubt to most books I read. But over time of watching BookTube and hearing people talk about The Wheel of Time, there are just, some things that I see that really make me hesitant to start it. And in this video, I would love, when I start telling you my points, I would love for the people to go in the comment section and tell me why I'm wrong. Maybe I have just been hearing everything wrong and I'm not seeing things the way that, there actually are. And I will always admit if I'm wrong. So let's kind of jump into it. The big thing, what do people always say if there's a negative thing about The Wheel of Time? What is it? The slog, right? Now, The Wheel of Time is 14 books with the prequel, and the slog is somewhere in the middle, and people will say it's 3 to 4 books. They'll say it went from like 96 to 2003. And these books average, I think I looked it up, and these books average like 700 pages. Some of them are more. I think some of them might be a little less. And just saying that alone, if you were just talking to, and again, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like just saying that to your casual reader, someone who just reads a few books a year, I feel like that explains enough why some people might not read it. And honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I don't know how Robert Jordan got the series to continue. And from how I hear people talk about the slog, they talk about it being, the pacing's really bad. There's not much going on. They're not very interesting. Some people have even said you could skip the slog. You could just go right past the slog and get back into the good books. I don't know how he made it to good books, because I don't believe, unless there's just so much goodwill built up beforehand, it must be ridiculously good before then. Because I could never give somebody book after book after book, and then if it's 4 books, another book, 700, you're looking over 2,000 pages of not interesting. How could anybody, they talk about powering through it, but I have problems powering through a couple hundred pages of uninteresting stuff. Like, that almost makes me want to put a book down. And we're talking about possibly 2,000 plus pages of uninteresting stuff. I mean, it boggles my mind that that's just something that people just casually toss in there. Oh, there's the slog, three or four books, and you're like, okay, if the books are only 300 pages, okay, if there was three bad books, if someone's like, oh, there's a 14 book series and they're all about 300 pages, and you're telling me right in the middle for like three books, they weren't that interesting. Okay, that's 900 pages. That's still a lot to me, but like, okay, you can bust through them. But you're telling me 2,000 pages? Like, I don't know how anybody continued after that third book or after that fourth book. How did you like agree? I mean, unless, and again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these books aren't what I'm thinking. Maybe they're just not to the level of the other ones, but they're not bad. That could be it. But I mean, it just it kind of boggles my mind. And then people talk about, like, okay, one thing throughout the series that he repeats himself a lot, and I'm thinking, to me, that makes perfect sense. That makes absolute perfect sense, because they're freaking 700, 800 page books. Of course you're going to repeat yourself. And this is one reason why I don't read a lot of gigantic books. Because if you think that somebody is going to be able to remember everything that you write in an 800 page book, and you're not going to have to repeat yourself, you're not going to have a very big fan base. Because not very many people can just remember everything from an 800 page book, especially when you have tons and tons of characters. Now, I mean, and this went over 7 years, and there's a difference. I mean, there are authors who went several years without writing a book, but when the book that they write comes out, people are like, oh, it's a good book. We're not writing 3 and 4 books in a 7-year series, period of time that people say is just bad and boring. And then that brings me to the adaptation. Now, I don't know how hardcore fans feel about the adaptation. I haven't looked too much into it, but I watched the first season. And again, maybe in the comments you can tell me that it didn't really capture the essence of the first book, because I felt like the first season of The Wheel of Time was very generic. It wasn't like terrible. It wasn't like, oh man, I wish I hadn't watched it, but it was just very generic. And I don't know if that's because we've had a lot of fantasy over the last 5-10 years, and it's coming kind of late to the party, and most of the stuff has been done. I mean, some of the stuff, the magic with the Aes Sedai was interesting, but the whole storyline and all the stuff that was presented seemed very, very generic. And I'm gonna watch the second season, and I'm hoping that it can, expand even more. I did feel like the last few episodes made it worth investing a second season in. I mean, I felt the series got better, but so this is more of a kind of concern. Like, these are my concerns of why I wouldn't want to jump into the book. I would love for Wheel of Time fans to tell me in the comments why I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that this isn't worth worrying about, and it's read it. It's worth reading. tell me, refute what I said, because I haven't read it, but this is all I hear, and this is what I hear from a lot of fans too. So maybe I'm overblowing what they've said. Tell me whether my reasons are valid or not. Um, but I would never tell anyone not to read it. Um, this isn't me hating on the Wheel of Time. This is just my personal perspective. So let me know what you think. Um, like and subscribe you know, if you made it this far, and I'll see you in the next one.